Me? For real? Oh. You can call from the Bahamas using Rev Boy's prepaid home phone service and prepaid chat cards for much less.
Hey girl, are you ready?
You get free unlimited on-island calls, voicemail, and no internet service or ID is required.
Hello?
Rev Boy's prepaid home phone service and prepaid chat cards.
Hey, Mamá. Vai bien.
Staying in touch never sounded so good.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios. Coming up tonight in news, Bahamar questions the holdup on the passage of the new gaming legislation. This as parliamentarians begin debate on the National Training Agency. BTC responds to heaping criticism of its service, plus how to try and ensure your kids have a safe summer. We've got those stories and so much more. I'm Vonique Toot, and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, it's been 2 months since the Nassau Guardian revealed the proposed new gaming legislation that sparked outrage in many sectors and even led to protests outside Parliament. Since then, nothing. Now, one of the country's biggest hopes for the future of the tourism industry says if parliamentarians don't act soon, it could set back the casino operator, which is waiting to move forward with online and mobile gaming operations. Vice President of Administration and External Affairs at Bahamar, Robert Sands, says it needs to happen and happen soon.
It is important that the government passes as quickly as possible these gaming laws and regulations to allow us to get on with the work in hand, that the country can benefit from incremental tax revenue, and that we can raise the profile of this destination as a truly gaming destination, not a tourist resort with a casino, but a gaming destination with resorts that exist.
Minister of Tourism Obi Wilshcombe said back in May that the bill was still under cabinet review and would likely be tabled in the House of Assembly the following week. More than a month has passed, but still no bill. With input from local casino operators like Atlantis and Bahamar, government drafted the proposed Gaming Act that would allow those properties to facilitate online and mobile gaming. Casino operators will benefit from the new law, which would permit gambling through communications technology and access through the internet. San says Bahamar officials have spoken with senior government representatives, but they can only hope the gaming bill goes to Parliament before summer recess.
We have been communicated to along the way by both the Minister of Tourism, by the Attorney General, by certainly the Senior Policy Advisor in the Office of the Prime Minister. We are hopeful that these regulations will be addressed prior to summer recess.
Until then, he says they cannot put in place certain mechanisms that would allow Bahamar to take advantage of the benefits that will come from modernized gaming regulations.
The innovations and the improvements and the modernization of these regulations will allow for us to put in place certain types of new games and amenities and procedures that will generate income both off and in season, and that will benefit the destination tremendously.
One of those innovative amenities is the introduction of an independent sports book operator, which he says will raise the profile of gaming in the Bahamas. He says the casino will be a significant revenue generator for the Bahamas, surpassing the less than $200 million being pulled in now.
In Las Vegas, it was $7 billion. In Macau, $42 billion. Now, we're not suggesting that the Bahamas is going to be close to those numbers, but the opportunity for growth with modernization will take us from a level of 200 million to maybe quadrupling that revenue with the modernization of these gaming regulations. And what does it mean? Not only does it mean incremental tax revenue for the government, it's a win-win-win situation that these regulations are approved in a timely fashion.
Speaking of Bahamar, leader of the Free National Movement, Dr. Hubert Minnis, is blasting the Christie administration, which he says has failed to deliver on its promise to pay the major developer more than $45 million to cover the cost of the new West Bay Street. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works Philip Brave Davis said yesterday he would meet with Bahamar officials today to discuss how much government will pay for roadworks associated with the $3.5 billion project. Davis recently said the payout would be less than initially expected. However, Minnis believes that's bad business.
That was a part of the negotiation, as part of the contract. I don't know why the Christie administration is now trying to renege on a contract that was already there. They knew that they were supposed to pay $40-odd million, and they should pay the money as opposed to going into some negotiation process that was not a part of the deal. I think it's bad what government is doing. You've entered a negotiation, you've entered an agreement, that was the agreement, then honor the agreement. How would you like somebody to do it to you?
The opposition leader's comments came after he and other senior F&M members toured the Bahamar construction site. Davis explained 2 weeks ago that the government was obligated to pay $45 million to Bahamar if the cost of the reconfiguration of West Bay Street exceeded $70 million. However, government has reportedly assessed the value at around $58 million. He says that means government would only pay 50%. However, Dr. Minnis says a reduced payout would send the wrong message to Bahamar officials.
I think Bahamar would look with jaundiced eyes moving forward. Which administration you trust more? And that's a decision they have to make. I don't want to get into that. But if one administration place certain things in a contract, the government, new government or whatever, change of government, it's their responsibility to carry on. You don't try and denigrate or manhandle an investor.
Dropped calls, subpar service, poor connections, and an overcrowded network are just a few of the complaints leveled against the Bahamas Telecommunications Company on a daily basis. Even the Prime Minister has repeatedly slammed the company's service since cable and wireless communications took over 2 years ago. BTC CEO is now responding to those claims. Royston Jones reports.
BTC CEO Jeff Houston today responding to the tide of criticism against the company's services. Houston says BTC's network is one of the best in the world, and he's unconcerned with the negative feedback. Houston said BTC has had its work cut out for it since taking the reins from the government. He said the process has been rocky and likened it to building new roads, where some discomfort is bound to happen. However, Houston promised the drive will eventually become an extremely smooth one, and pointed to the difference in the rate of dropped calls since CWC took over as evidence of that.
At the point when the company was privatized, drop calls were hitting up to 20% right across the network, and the average speed that a customer could get was probably about a tenth of what you can get today. I went from a network that was carrying, if I can use some technical terms, 4.5 megabits of data per day to a network today which is using 1,400 megabits of data. So there has been a huge data explosion whilst we've rolled out new technology and moved people from a very low speed, underperforming mobile network to a high speed data network with kind of new capabilities.
BTC Vice President of Sales and Marketing Marlon Johnson said when he hears a service complaints, and he hears them frequently, he often thinks to himself how quickly people forget.
If you look at our network 18 months ago, 12 months ago, if you would try to top up on a Friday evening, you couldn't. You just couldn't top up because there was no capacity in the network. Today, that's not an issue. If you were living in the southwest part of the island on a Friday, you couldn't make a call. Just couldn't make a call. The call dropped. The call wasn't there. There was no capacity in those areas. In a lot of our family island communities, we didn't have 2G coverage, much less 2G or 4G coverage. Our number of calls that processed on the network it's gone from 2.5 million calls to over 3 million calls processed a day. The volume of calls has gone up 60%. Data traffic is up 27,000%. These things could not absolutely happen if the network hadn't been improved and expanded in a substantial way.
Houston said the company's plan is to address some hotspots in New Providence and throughout the islands this year, and is committed $20 million to do so. However, Houston pointed out that Ericsson ranks BTC's network as best in its class in the world, and ranks its 2G call network in the top 10 in the world. He also noted that no company can guarantee 100% indoor coverage.
The experience that the Bahamas is going through is not dissimilar The North America experience, we're going through the exact same experience that AT&T and Verizon have seen in America. They believe that we are probably where AT&T was 2 years ago. AT&T, when they evolved their network 4 years ago, had a huge problem with coverage, had a huge problem with drop calls, and it was predominantly driven by people suddenly latching on to data. So as all the data customers start to use up all the capacity, there's less available for people making voice calls. So that's kind of what's happened, and we're going through the same thing. Our battle really is to make sure now we continue to add more and more and more coverage so that we keep up. But you know, the Bahamas is a beautiful place and you just can't build towers everywhere.
Johnson claimed that people often experience poor service on BTC's network because they're using non-BTC devices, though he hastened to add that the cellular monopoly doesn't take service issues lightly.
There's a combination of issues, some related to the network and network issues, but some totally related to the customer and the customer experience. And our challenge really is to advise customers. So the message out there for all customers is when you experience issue, don't take the default assumption that it's just the network. Report it, even if you've done it before. Consistently let us know when you're having those issues and where. And that really does help us to pinpoint to say with some specificity what the issues are.
Houston's comments come amid take-back talks of the majority stake of BTC, although when or if that will happen remains to be seen. Reporting for MB12, I'm Royston Jones.